All right, no income tax. That sounds pretty good, right? Well, it's one of the reasons why you see, this exodus of people leaving from places like California, New Jersey, even here in New York. No tax or low income tax havens. Think states like Texas, Florida. So why would a state bank on getting less money from you? Well, the answer is they really don't. Read the fine print here. The states that don't siphon big chunks of what you make, well, they make it back by taking bigger pieces of what you spend. Joining us now to discuss and dig into this is Doug Flynn from Flynn Capital Management. Doug, you're the guy to talk about this. I've lived in both states where they're high tax. I live in New Jersey. I'm native to New York, but I also lived in Florida for a bit of time. Tell us about the difference between these two tax engines and how low tax havens are actually collecting revenue.
Right. Yeah. So it does show up in other ways. It can show up in property tax. It can show up in homeowners insurance costs or flood and hurricane insurance. And as an example, Florida is actually the most expensive homeowners insurance cost state in the nation. So and that's what's happening is people are looking at if you're going for the same equivalent house, like $1 million house in the Northeast and $1 million house in Florida, if you do the math on that, it may not be that much different. But a lot of times people are downsizing, so they're getting fooled by the lower cost, but partly because they're taking a lesser valued house. But per thousand, it's not really cheaper. They have to get their money from somewhere, and they're not getting it from the income tax. So you just have to be careful. You have to do the math and really see, because I think some people get shocked when they start seeing some of the higher costs that they do have down there because they're focusing on the income tax not being there.
Yeah, let's take a deeper look into those states like Texas and Florida. I mean, they're two of the country's no income tax growth states, but they're also two of the most consumption tax reliant state governments. What do you make of the state's budget directly tied to spending and tourism? And is there the concern, whether that backfires? I think about the pandemic and that being a time where those states kind of struggled with revenue.
That's right. I mean, it's great when they have an inflow of people, and that masks a lot when you have more people coming in and spending more, and the spend is there. That can cover a lot, and so I mean, it works. Those numbers do work when you do it that way. You can't really do it on a state that's sort of losing people, but it does change the dynamic on where they get their money from, and if at some point that flat lines or goes the other way, they may have to start introducing other ways to create revenue. So it works while it works, and that's a draw, and that's good. And look, if you make a lot of money, there's no question. If you make a lot of money and you have no income tax, you're going to save a lot of money. And the problem is for people who don't make a lot of money, as a percentage of their income, they're going to spend more on that in terms of the percentage of their income going to these other costs that they have.
Doug, before I let you go, let me ask you this. A recent report finds that baby boomers, they're sitting on $90 trillion worth of assets, $36 trillion expected to be passed down to the next generation over the next 20 years. Their massive wealth, though, will most likely be passed down to people who are already pretty rich. What's behind this trend, and what does it mean for those who are not in that category?
Yeah, basically, the people with the most wealth are going to hand it down to the people with the next most wealth. And really what happens is more than half of all the money that's going to get handed down is coming from 2% of the people, and 3/4 of that money is going to the 10% of the wealthiest. It's really unfortunate. The bottom 50% of people are only going to get 1 to 2% of all this money. So it's not going to narrow the gap. It's going to actually widen it. But that's what happens. If you have money, you send it down to your family, and they typically have money too.
As we're already dealing with the K-shaped economy that's showing that divide between the wealthiest and least wealthiest in this country. Doug Flynn, thank you as always. Right there was the closing bell. Markets